All right, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Product. Today, we're super lucky. I have an experienced product leader with us today, Ashwin Pingali. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Brendan, for having me over. Super excited to talk about product.
Nice. Yeah, same here. Do you want to give a quick intro for yourself?
Sure. Uh, like Brendan introduced, I'm Ashwin. I work as a senior manager with product management in Amazon. Right now, I lead a product team of about eight product managers within the seller and the vendor financial experience space. Essentially, the best way to explain my job is we take care of the systems and products which pay the third-party sellers and the retail vendors and also manage their financial experience on Amazon.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So, the target of this podcast is really beginning product managers and aspiring product managers.
hmm
One thing, I can speak from experience as I'm new to the role as well. It's really hard to get a definition of product management and really understand
Sure.
what is product management. But with your experience, how would you define it?
Yeah, I'll probably do what good product managers always do, make up stuff. Um, I mean, in my experience, right, product management for me has always been two key points. It's either identifying a problem or a need or an opportunity. Um, I mean, that's probably the most simplified way of putting the definition to a product manager's role. I know I've heard versions of product managers being defined as CEOs for their specific space or their specific products. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is how good are you to identify a customer problem or a customer need or an opportunity and articulate a business vision. You're more or less playing quarterback for the rest of your team, kind of articulating that vision of what your product should look like and helping them move in the same direction to build something that is of a core need for a customer. That's how I would define product management.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the biggest mix-ups initially is it has the word management, but you don't really manage anyone.
hmm
You're kind of like you say, the quarterback of
Yeah.
the play.
In
Um,
fact, that was one of the core skill sets that I found super useful for product management, right? You bring up a great point. Very often we see product managers being individual contributors or managing a team of other product managers. Um, Essentially, your ability to influence without authority because you work with a bunch of UX designers, sales in some products, with the engineering teams, with senior leadership. You are essentially not going to be the smartest person in the room, but still having that vision, that articulation to explain how a product should work or how a product should function, what are its features. I think that is a differentiator between a great and a good product manager.
nice. Maybe we can go into that a little bit.
hmm
How do you grow your influence in product? I think you're a manager of product managers.
hmm
What are some ways that you've seen good PMs grow into great PMs?
Got it. I've seen a couple of approaches. Again, it's kind of an it depends answer, right? And
Yeah.
it usually depends on the nature of the space, the cycle of the product you're in. So I'll give you an example. I worked on the Indian version of Prime Now. Uh, this was a product where we had a simple one-line problem statement. How do we deliver the maximum selection to customers within, say, 2 hours? Right. It was a super broad problem statement, and we were also trying to figure out how do we deliver groceries or some of the lowest margin products profitably. Now, when you start with such a blue sky statement, sometimes you tend to go bottoms up. Like we spent countless a number of hours in because we did not know who our customers were at that point in time when we got the problem statement. So we did a bottoms up approach. We spent countless hours at physical stores, local mom and pop stores, trying to figure out what is it that customers shop. How can we, who are we actually serving? What is the customer persona? What do they look for? And we came down to, like, say, three broad problem statements: speed, convenience, and um, uh, pricing slash selection. And that's how we were able to narrow down a product to say an app. Like what's the easiest way to get a product to a customer is to find the closest space where that product is available and deliver it to them within speed. And by applying some of the existing product frameworks, we were able to segment our customers into who would use our product, what would they use it for, what are the features they need, and that eventually developed into a Prime Now kind of a product. Now, I've also worked in a couple of other products, specifically around Amazon Business. That's the B2B version of Amazon,
Hmm.
where the problem statement was more top-down to begin with, right? Like, hey, we see this new market segment which is being unaddressed, which is basically your B2B customers.
Yeah.
How do we address their needs? How do we address um, their problems? Because asking them to shop one product at a time on the conventional Amazon.com website just doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
Uh, so again, when I say top down, probably this was another bottoms up idea which someone developed before my time. But when I joined, the overall strategy of how Amazon Business as a business unit should function was more or less coming to us from the top, saying, hey, this is a very strategic space we would like to get into. And from that perspective, I think for me, I own a particular set of features within the overall Amazon Business unit. And once I knew what was the Uber strategy, the overarching strategy, I kind of went deep into listening to my customers on what they want and specifically developing features for them. So,
Yeah.
in short, to your question, right, how do we go about it? It can either be a bottoms up approach where you identify a problem and or you identify an opportunity and go after them,
Yeah.
or it could also be a top down approach where they have a more strategic view of a certain segment of customers and you try to develop something very specific for that customer segment.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? So my background, I have 17 years of retail experience in retail
Hmm.
field leadership. And so, excuse me, at the time, I was down in Southern California running like San Diego area when Amazon Books first rolled out down there. And what I found to be
Hmm.
very fascinating as you talk about like research and going to the consumer, going to the grocery store and doing
Hmm.
your research, you know, I thought it was super interesting how you took how Amazon took this retail model, but found how to blend what customers love from the Amazon online and app experience and blend that into the retail model and not
Hmm.
necessarily mimic what successful retailers were doing. Because I think that's what now that I've shopped into the 5-star stores and I've shopped at Amazon Books, it's just been super interesting how you're changing the consumer behaviors, not necessarily mimicking what the best in class retailers were already doing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. I think again, I don't know enough about the origins of the 5 star store or the
yeah,
bookstore.
yeah,
I mean, Amazon is super
yeah,
broad,
yeah,
and my knowledge is kind of limited to
yeah,
my space. But from what I hear, some of these you ideas, right, like even say the
mhm,
Amazon Go store, actually came out of specific problem statements that someone thought of, saying, hey, like why should I
yeah,
stand in lines at a cashier till, or
yeah,
how can I better serve my customer who want to go to the physical stores, have to have the touch and feel of a physical product but still do like shopping with us, right? And some of these ideas may have
yeah,
originated from very simple uh, thoughts or ideas, but eventually grow into a pretty successful product. So I totally hear you when you say that this is probably for me, that's been the biggest attraction of Amazon, the
yeah.
ability to do such a variety of things.
Yeah, and you know, in talking to you, it's I keep hearing you say problem statements and listening to the customer problems. Let me ask you this: you're you're not really searching for the customer solution. As a great PM, are you really taking the customer's problem and
Mhm.
coming to the solutions like with a blank slate, starting from the beginning?
That's a brilliant point, right? One of the things that I learned as a product manager the hard way is don't be married to a solution,
Oh yeah,
be married to the problem. Like be married to the opportunity. Like listen to your customers. They may not directly tell you what they want or what is the solution they are looking for, but if you listen close enough, they'll always give you hints on what their need is. So when you are super passionate about the problem or the opportunity rather than the solution, you kind of tend to be more open with ideas, right? You tend to be more flexible with how you're going to solve that problem or address that opportunity, and that's when you get the optimal results. In fact, uh, uh, one of the books that I've read, which is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it actually talks about this. It's a book by Stephen Covey. um, I usually use that not just for product management to say. In fact, I would highly recommend it to most folks trying to enter their work career. This is a super nice book, not just for PMs but for everyone. And
Yeah.
it actually talks about how you get sometimes you tend to be very focused on the solution rather than the problem, and
Mhm.
how that can actually impact what you eventually deliver.
Yeah, and I hate to get sidetracked here, but it's funny because you're the third person I've talked to that the book recommendation you give is not necessarily product specific. It's
Mhm.
leadership specific. It's communication specific, and that's super interesting to me. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at it, right, product management at a super high level is a very generalist role. Whatever applies for the effectiveness of a product manager, it would probably apply to a lot of other roles, right?
Mhm.
Would an engineering manager not think about their customers? Would a UX designer not think about their customers? Would a VP or an SVP not think about their customers? It's a highly unlikely, which is why I think it's both challenging and super interesting to be a
Mhm.
product manager. You get to wear multiple hats at different points in time. I've actually had pretty strong product managers who I've met who were engineers in their past life. They're super passionate about coding. In fact, if left alone, I'm pretty sure they would do a really good job, coding a part of their feature. So having that ability to wear different hats is also something I've seen successful product managers have.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of different hats, what was your role? How did you get into product management?
Mhm. Uh, I come from very similar to you. I come from a very strong retail background. In fact, my educational background is in accounting. I used to be a financial analyst when I started my career. I worked with the UK retailer Tesco when they were setting up their stores in India, and I had this innate passion to be uh, I preferred being on the field more than behind a desk.
Yeah.
So I kind of volunteered when they were setting up fulfillment centers, or we call them distribution centers for brick and mortar retailers. Uh, when they were setting up a distribution center in the south of India and the west of India, I kind of volunteered to take up a on the field job of leveraging my financial expertise on how to calculate ROIs, how to negotiate deals with third party logistics companies,
Yeah.
and launch distribution centers. And what this gave me is the appreciation for warehouse management systems, right? That's what first triggered my exposure to hardcore technology, if you can say so, where we were implementing a couple of new solutions within our distribution centers. We had to take a look at multiple use cases, and again, India back then, when we were setting up stores, was the concept of organized retail was super new. We were thinking of implementing a version of Oracle's warehouse management systems, and that actually needed someone on the field to be able to articulate from a warehouse receiver or someone working on the receiving or the loading dock. What are their requirements to the engineering team who were remotely based in some other location? So that I can say is my first exposure to product management. Even though I was not doing the job of a product manager, that's when I saw myself translating the needs of someone who's doing the actual job, the user, to someone who's designing the experience. And post that, I was fortunate enough to get into an MBA, and I was a campus hire with Amazon. Again, there I started in a pretty hardcore operations role, but Fun fact, I actually joined very close to the day when Amazon.in was launched. So we were a pilot team, like basically doing a lot of blue sky projects. I started with customer service where I managed a team of customer service associates, but my job was bifold because we were also working with a few product managers on developing self-service tools. The customer segment I was dealing with, they had a high propensity to call customer service or talk to customer service for every issue. And one of the first few set of products that we took up was how do we eliminate the need to contact us? How do we empower the customers to work on to provide them tools to work on solutions that avoided these contacts, and that's how I got exposed to product management. And after that, I joined the Indian version of Prime Now, where I took up the title of a product manager, and I was working on the launch of this Prime Now app in India.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's one of the problems. So I work with the CRM team, and
Uh-huh.
so that's one of the problems I'm trying to solve is, how do I provide customers with as many self-service options as possible and
Yep.
empower them to
Yep.
do the functions on their own.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty challenging space. It's kind of unique because that's one product space where you are working towards eliminating your own job.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the long run, when people do develop these tools, they actually understand how it impacts the customer, it empowers the customer, and I believe that's one of probably one of my most gratifying roles to see customers not have the need to call us.
Absolutely. And I love your retail background that you have. Did you find
Thank
that
you.
you were able to ask additional layers of questions in your
Mhm.
role as a product manager based on that's what's really interesting is, when you get that field or that retail experience, you really
Mhm.
get to know your end user, you get to know the
Yep.
customer out there that's having
Yep.
the problems. And I think that you get to ask better questions, I would
Mhm.
say, to better understand the problems that they have.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree, right? It has helped me in a couple of ways. One is because I have an understanding of, I've been a user, I've been on the other side of the table. Uh, Sometimes it's intuitive for me to understand uh, certain things that probably someone who is not from the retail background would take probably a little longer to understand. And in some cases, it has worked against me where I
Yeah,
come with a preconceived notion, but over a period of time through experience, I've learned how to kind of eliminate that white noise. But outside that, like you rightly pointed, right, when you come with some form of an industry experience, and again, I want to caveat this to all new product managers, right? I personally don't believe it is a must to have prior industry experience to be a successful product manager, as long as you know how to ask the right questions. But it's a nice to have. Yeah, we definitely have an advantage. When I came from the supply chain background, when I understood how the core operations in a distribution center and a fulfillment center works, how an operation teams uh, you know how do they measure their success measures, how do they look at metrics, that background really helped me appreciate the real user needs when we were developing solutions, right? And I think that's a great advantage to have because like you rightly pointed out, you get to ask the smart questions
hmm
because you have context into what is needed. So that's really you know pretty big advantage to have, but at the same time you need to watch out for the confirmation bias,
yeah.
where you don't walk into a solution thinking, hey, I know it all, I don't think I need to listen to the customers anymore.
Yeah, and I think I was going to say that after hearing you talk about the problem statements, it is really easy at the same time to have this expertise, this industry
Yeah.
knowledge, and
Mhm.
then come in saying, "I already know the answer." Whereas I think that's where you have the flip side of the coin was you'd ask more questions if you didn't have the experience. So it's really about balancing, and I think self-awareness and
Mhm.
being aware that you're not getting that confirmation bias.
Yep, yep, yep. And also some of the easiest mechanisms I've found to eliminate this bias is just go by data. uh, there is a 99% chance that I've seen data not being wrong. Like when used correctly and when you're looking at the right metrics, right measures, uh, there is a very high likelihood that the data will point you the right way. And I've seen some of the most successful product managers eliminate their bias by just looking at data objectively and saying, hey, this is what the data tells me, I'm going to do it. And they've been pretty successful at their jobs.
Yeah. So, what advice would you have for a newer aspiring PM?
Um, I think we briefly covered my first. I call them tenets for a lack of better words. I think we covered our first tenet, right? Be married to the problem or the opportunity, not the solution. Uh, the second one, this I found super useful while working with extremely talented engineering, research, science, UX teams, right? There is a normal tendency or a pressure for neo product managers to sound like the smartest person in the room. My genuine 2 cents to those PMs is, please stop. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You need to be the person with the vision in the room. You need to be the person closest to the customer in the room. You will always building a product, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Building a product takes a team. Don't ever feel the pressure to know everything or you know uh, have an answer to everything. It's absolutely fine to brainstorm, to be open to ideas. In fact, some of my most successful products were not even my ideas. This was something an engineer or a UX designer said, hey, how about this? This works. I've seen this work in another product, right? Being having that open mind, or having the right mechanisms to create that brainstorming environment, I think that's super critical. The third one I would say is, most of the product managers, or at least the unsuccessful ones, tend to focus on the idea. Like, in a given environment, right? Like say an organization like Amazon, or even the Googles, the Facebooks, or some of the largest organizations of the world. Um, and again, it isn't just restricted to all the large corporations. I would probably say in most organizations, it's very unlikely that a bad idea will pass a sniff test. So there will always be a decently good idea, but the idea is not the end goal. The end goal is actually the execution of that idea. So give equal, if not more, importance to the execution of that idea as well. Very often, what great product managers do is write an awesome business case, create a PowerPoint presentation, or write a memo to the senior leadership saying, hey, I have this brilliant idea. And once they get the go ahead, the blessing to say, hey, this sounds great, why don't you go and build it? That's where they drop the ball. So I would probably say, some of the program management aspects of a product, where once you've decided what to build, how do you go about working with engineering teams, writing great business requirement documents, articulating the product vision to multiple external or internal stakeholders? How do you create an MLP, the minimum like lovable product, or how do you phase them into multiple phases? uh, I'm sure most of your viewers would have come across this framework, where this is something that I give to all my new PMs, around the framework where you don't necessarily build a chassis, engine, wheels, the outer body of a car as different phases of your product. You move from a skateboard to a bike to a motorbike to a car, right? That's how you move phases, where you make incremental benefits to try and solve to the customer need. That actually lays out the importance of execution in a product. And I would probably say focus on that. Focus on some of the most tactical stuff, like sending out status updates of your product. How do you write very clear requirements so that you don't waste engineering cycles? Keep iterating. Have shorter sprints. Some of these execution details actually add to a successful product.
Wow, really, really good feedback, man. I love the second point. Especially being newer to product, it's easy to go in and have this chip on your shoulder. You have to prove yourself, and I have to show everyone that I know what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And the quicker I got to the point where I started asking the dev team, what do you guys think we should do? What do you think is the best solution? Here's the problem. What do you think we should do to fix it? And just bouncing ideas around and embracing those brainstorming questions and never feeling like you need to have all the answers. The
Yep.
quicker you get out of that mode, I think the easier your job becomes and the better your processes would flow.
Yep.
Yeah.
In fact, that's actually helped me win the trust and respect of my partners as well, when they know that I'm someone who's willing to say that, hey, your opinion also matters. I found winning their trust and respect is much more easier.
Absolutely, absolutely. What books would you recommend? I know you mentioned the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People.
Mhm.
Any other books that you'd recommend for a PM?
Um, the other one that I personally loved was a book called Influence. Again, this may not necessarily be another product management specific book. This is a book by Robert Cialdini. Um, I found that book pretty interesting for a couple of reasons, right? They actually walk through certain uh, specific examples. Like you asked a question right at the beginning of this interview: how do I influence without authority? This book, Influence, I think I'm just reading out the Amazon title for you now. It's called Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion. I found they used very relatable use cases or examples of how people were able to influence without authority. And again, I found this is, think of this as more of a flavor of the month, because I found this book pretty useful in some of the conversations I've been having recently. Um, and this is definitely also another book I would recommend to folks. But I mean, it's a good book for both a mix of experienced tenured product managers who are finding it difficult to win and negotiate certain difficult conversations, as well as new PMs who are looking for mechanisms or ideas on how to articulate their vision a lot better. I think this book really helped me a lot.
Nice. I would definitely check both of those out. Any questions I didn't ask? Anything else you want to add before we hop off?
Um, I mean, the one thing that I would probably end my point with is, uh, and this is something that Amazon has ingrained in me, right? One of the things that while industry studies, while competitor analysis are really great, my genuine ask for all new product managers is work customer backwards. uh, like focus on your customers. Don't worry about what the rest of the world is doing. Yes, it is important to learn from what's happening around the world, but I would probably say focusing on what your customer wants or what your customer needs. That's super critical for you to be successful as a product manager. Listen to your customers, talk to your customers more. If you are not spending a good 10 to 20% of your week looking at multiple aspects of voice of customer, then you're doing your job a disservice as a product manager. Please take that time out. I know it's tactical, it's time consuming, but eventually all this effort will be worthwhile. It will be worth its weight in gold when eventually the product comes out.
Wow, I love that point. Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, you can connect me either on LinkedIn or on Instagram. I can give you my user ID, and yeah, feel free to drop me a DM or message me on LinkedIn, and happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. I'll connect it all and I'll add all the information in the show notes for users, for listeners to get a hold of you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time today. Happy New Year. And again, I can't thank you enough. You shared so many gems today.
Oh, thanks for having me over. I really enjoyed this chat.
Yeah, likewise.